Good evening, everyone. I'm Jose Sosaya here in the Wave Now studio, and we want to welcome you in to this last edition of Wave News Extra for the calendar year 2025, if you can believe it, how fast the time does go by. But for tonight's live stream, we're doing a bit of a year in review. Just to recap, of course, we discuss every day that we do open up our live stream for you to connect with us on the Wave Now app or on our social media channels. It's usually the daily sort of, not distillation, but focused on the stories we've been working hard to confirm, investigate, just double check and share all that information with you. Today, as the hours and the minutes count down to switch over and looking ahead to 2026, we thought we'd go back and look at some of our own data and information. And what we're going to begin with tonight is a bit, if you notice the title, what we labeled this live stream, if you're joining us, was the year in review, with a particular focus, first off, with the most clicked on, the most viewed, the most interacted with stories that you folks at home or wherever you're engaging with what we're publishing, and you can connect with it on the free apps, online, on the homepage, all the other different ways. But just there is a list, and you're going to see sort of a theme with the most central one, which is why actually we're going to begin with the top story over the course of the year 2025. Perhaps, and unfortunately, not surprisingly, it's just the ripple effect, devastatingly so, of what happened early November with the UPS Flight 2976 crash, and just how much of a difference it has made in so many lives, and even the degrees of separation are not that far removed to what happened ever since then. If you might remember exactly where you were on November 4th when we were trying to process these images of the MD-11 plane crashing down moments after trying to take off. We know now, just before the end of the calendar year, that a total of 15 people have died because of the damage and destruction. 3 of them, the crew members on board. Now 12 people, including one man's face we're going to show you in the list, but 12 people who were killed on the ground. In the week since, we know there's been a preliminary report from the NTSB that found some fatigue cracks on this plane, the left engine and the pylon detached from the actual plane. And at our last check, there's still some cleanup that contractors and crews are doing as far as environmental fallout, lawsuits, and all these different things that we're going to keep staying on top of well into the year 2026. Now, as I mentioned, just to now add the fully updated list of all the people we lost because of really, perhaps you engaging with the stuff online when we're reporting the story. It is the most consequential of the year. And these are the folks that family, friends, coworkers all lost. We're going to start at the top with the crew. Captain Dana Diamond, Captain Richard Wartenberg, First Officer Lee Truitt, you see there. The victims on the ground, we can go on the list there from forward. It's Carlos Arias Fernandez, John Locks, Angela Anderson, John Spray, Kimberly Asa, Louise Faden, Megan Washburn, Trina Chavez, Matt Sweets, Ella Petty, Horton, Tony Kane, and the most recent victim who died actually Christmas morning, as confirmed by Mayor Craig Greenberg, was Alan Rodriguez Colina. He had been fighting in the hospital for nearly a month. Many of these victims on the ground were either employees or customers of Grade A Auto and Recycling. Coming back here in the studio, the crash really did impact people from all over. It didn't have to be just physically here in the city, but across any of those connections, old or not so old, to Louisville, doing their best to try to honor the lives who were lost. We're going to begin with a series of some of the more emotionally charged and meaningful stories that we were able to share with you. The first being just a vigil processing the initial wave of grief. And our Julia Richardson went to such a vigil just days after the crash.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures.
Whether you're talking about the unit in and of itself or UPS in and of itself, we're still one big family, and that family grew a little bit smaller.
Adam Jackson says he works for UPS and left the site of the crash shortly before it happened. Jackson tells me he usually takes Grade Lane home, but didn't on Tuesday because of traffic.
We get our son together for school, and my wife was holding him in tears, and I was like, what's wrong, hon? And she just thought about, that brief moment before I had actually called her on my way home that, it would just be, it flashed before her eyes that it would just be them. And there was a lot of that going around for a lot of folks that day.
Jackson was among community members who showed up for a vigil Thursday night to remember the victims killed in connection to the crash. And for many, even if they weren't directly impacted, the crash was and still is traumatic.
When I heard that a child died, that hit me hard. I choked up a few minutes ago, and it was emotional. It was overwhelming. Words I can't describe.
Part of the vigil, these crosses for people to sign dedicated to the crash victims. Lutheran Church Charities provides the crosses and sends them to disasters and tragic events across the country. Clyde Lang, who lives in Louisville, just started building the crosses for the company a few months ago. Lang never imagined some of the first crosses he made would be for a tragedy so close to home.
It's sad that it has to happen in my community. At the same time, it's very fulfilling to know that I maybe played a very small part in people working through that process.
And leaders say they know it will take time for people to process everything that happened.
We are here to help and support each of the survivors, each of the families who are in grief, any member of our community who has been impacted by this horrific tragedy.
Julia Richardson, Wave News.
And of course, the grief is still very much lingering at the same time as multiple agencies responding with their own respective investigating roles to this crash, coming in the first part, the immediate chaos and emergency to try to stop the fire, later to recover and search for any possible survivors. And the images haunting in their own respect. In this report for our year in review, our David Mattingly shares how the airport's only first responders actually sprang into action fearlessly that very day.
Striking the ground with explosive force, the crash of UPS Flight 2976 tested even first responders specially trained for aviation disasters. When I first arrived, I saw a lot of fire, a lot of chaos. There was just so much smoke, so much fire. It seemed like every few seconds there was some type of an explosion that would kind of startle everybody, and everybody's looking to see where the explosion came from. The noise of all the fire trucks running, the foam that's going on the ground. Louisville Muhammad Ali International's Chief of Public Safety, Josh Grimes, for the first time tells the story of how his firefighters wondered if they would survive. I've heard some of our responders say that they thought that this was the day they may not make it home because of all the explosions. And you've seen the tanks that were down there. There's so many tanks where the oil recycling center was that every time an explosion went off, they're thinking, okay, is the next one going to be it? That's some of the words I've heard out of our responders. Just getting to the scene was dangerous. They raced through rush hour traffic only to be blocked by downed power lines arcing on the ground. When that was cleared, oil from an oil recycling facility then spilled across the road and over the top of their boots. At one point, the oil was rising almost like floodwaters. The oil was coming up so quick and going over Grade Lane where our trucks were stationed that our equipment, Louisville Fire's equipment, all the fire equipment that were staged on Grade Lane were then at a risk because the oil was underneath the vehicles and coming up on the tires. Grimes says so much water was being poured on the fire, water pressure was low. But eventually they pushed the flames back, and it took a while for them to find out what they were truly up against. But we didn't realize that it was a while. We didn't realize that this scene went as far back as it did. We're coming in from Crittenden Drive, crossing the railroad tracks, and we're immediately confronted with this wall of fire, wall of smoke. We have no idea what's on the backside of this fire or how far that this crash scene actually went. It turned out to be a half mile of destruction.
a crash scene littered with scorched and smoldering wreckage where 14 people lost their lives.
Our staff come to our agency with a very diverse background in public safety, so we've seen a lot of stuff. We've seen a lot of bad things. This is probably the worst thing that we've ever seen.
That was our David Mattingly with that report. And as we continue on this theme of the most viewed story on digital and perhaps over the course of everything we've shared with you in 2025, the deadly UPS plane crash. The plane last had its general detailed visual inspections on that pylon, that particular problem part, in October of 21. The NTSB says this is part of a 6-year schedule. It was due for another detailed inspection when it clocked just over 29,000 cycles, but it was still 8,000 cycles short of the next deadline for maintenance. The plane did have lubrication on some of the structural components by October 18th, so within a month of when the crash happened. In our reporting, we found flight records also showed this was the last day the plane was at UPS's contract maintenance facility in San Antonio before going back into service. The prelim report also connects this crash to something similar that happened to an American flight 191 in Chicago back in 1979. That left engine and pylon also separated, causing the plane to crash. The NTSB in that case found there was improper maintenance and that it damaged the parts it said had cracks on that respective plane. And of course, more has been, shared over time, but there's still much more the NTSB will have to do before it publishes its conclusive report. But if you look at these pictures and the series, this was something we had figured out and we got copies of from airport surveillance cameras showing the moment the left engine and the pylon fall over the left wing. Another picture showing the flames coming out of the tail section, indicating that could have been impacted as well. The NTSB saying the MD-11 did not get any higher than about 30 feet above ground before the crash. And according to the NTSB's report, parts of the left pylon mount showed there were those fatigue cracks, areas of overt stress failure, and that investigators found a fatigue crack on both surfaces of the back lug. And even more, vignettes, perspectives, camera shots gave us, these other angles on a moment of terror in the moment it was happening. But this drawing a lot of interest to investigators as well at the gate next door where ramp workers were trying to take care of the Southwest flight. Someone out there notices a fireball, and we kind of zero it in with our graphics there, the circle at the top pointing out to the other ramp workers. It's skipping every second, but you can still see where the smoke is coming. This next angle capturing the takeoff, or at least trying to see the initial explosion when the engine ripped off, the white smoke leaving a trail as the plane continued to try to fly. And then this is another part we put in slow motion, the orange glow on the ground from the fire already starting on the plane. The plane itself barely clears the blast shield, and it's going to crash within seconds as you're seeing the ground shaking and capturing some of the motion sensors there. The blast of air from the jet causing the camera to react, actually thinking it was looking at multiple items on the screen. And here's from where David's report was: fire trucks, other rescue vehicles there at Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport trying to get close. The only hiccup in their response was there was a truck struggling to get through the gate where the plane just barely cleared moments earlier. In our last examples of this huge, massive, consequential story was, again, the chaos of when phone calls were coming in to describe to somebody, go help if you could. Shortly after takeoff, it was thousands of people calling in for help. And when we received the 911 calls, this was another piece of the widespread impact. And here's what our reporter Logan Perrone was able to put together.
In a matter of moments, the calls started coming in.
Oh my God! The plane just crashed. Great Lane. Something has exploded. There's a huge smoke plume.
Thousands of people across the metro reporting the fiery explosion after UPS Flight 2976 crashed in November.
911, operator Rock 911.
Dozens describing the moment they saw the plane come down.
911, operator Stafford, where is your emergency?
We just saw a plane fall here by UPS. It went up in flames and it crashed right by the railroad track.
Are you positive you saw a plane crash?
Yeah, it was in front of all of us. It's smoking like that.
Was it a UPS plane?
I believe so.
I believe so. We just saw it one of the wings was on fire, then it just crashed.
Several calls coming from people at the site.
Our people are at work. I am standing here looking at the black smoke where it just landed on one of our buildings.
It landed on the building.
Yeah, in the Great Lane, in Great Auto Parts.
There's like about 10 of us stuck back here behind a fire.
We're already aware of the fire. We've already got responders pulled up on scene.
How are we going to get out, though? I mean, where? Where?
And from all over, helpless cries from people waiting for answers.
Oh my God, that so many people just probably died.
We're getting help on the way.
Oh my God, there's so many people in that area.
It's still tough to see some of those images, I'm sure. Vivid memories will come to mind there at the same time. A reminder, this is something that, as far as an archive, understanding just the scope of how much this has meant to all of you out in the community. The stories, by the way, if you ever wanted to, take a quick rebriefing, let's say, just a reacquainting with some of the details. It's something, of course, over the next months, whatever the conclusive NTSB report does come out, you can always check back in with everything we have at wave3.com to get these, as I call them, just vignettes of the human impact across the Louisville Metro. What we're going to do is, now that we've established this is the top most viewed, most relevant, important story for you all through wave3.com, we're going to take a break to go over some of the other top stories over the course of the year as we continue this special year in review here in the Wave Now studio. So thanks for joining us, by the way, everyone. We're going to be right back after this brief break on Wave News Extra. We'll see you in a bit. All right, everyone, we're back here in the Wave Now studio for this year in review, getting closer to the new year 2026. We begin with really the most important theme and subject of the top online stories for you all here in the Wave 3 community, being the UPS plane crash. And 3 of those top separate stories will fall under the umbrella. So if you stick with us, we'll explain which of those sub stories did fall in their own individual published articles. What we're going to do, though, is look at the next list that are unrelated stories. And so what I am going to do next is kind of walk you through the numerical order. I know sometimes countdown lists will start from the bottom to the top. It was just important that I think we spend the time that we did discussing just how meaningful, consequential discussing the plane crash was, and to think it wasn't even 2 months ago that this all happened. So with that, we'll talk about what you all decided as our viewers online and readers online, what the number 2 most viewed interactive story was. And it was this discovery of rats in a Louisville factory. For some of these stories, what we do is kind of bring you to the article in case this refreshes anything, if it rings a bell. But you can see the headline there, the FDA warning any consumers don't eat, sell, serve any of these products because rats were found at this Louisville factory, specifically the Pan-African Food Distributors, Inc. Likely, federal investigators stepped in hoping that they could keep things accountable to try and get operations back in order. But maybe just the shock for you all in discovering that FDA inspectors found an active rodent infestation, numerous droppings on several product containers at a time they went to check out this distribution center in May. So there would be time to then clean up and take care of business, as it were. The FDA asking consumers on their part if they bought anything, with a paper trail coming from these distributors to carefully clean and sanitize surfaces. The company distributors agree to a recall. You can see there's a click or tap section here if that was still something just to check in on. But interesting to see, sometimes in these stories we don't have all the visual elements, but just letting you all know this is what ranked on the list of the most interesting clicked on stories for you over the course of the year. As we now look at story number 3, and this has to do perhaps with folks who were impacted because they are Spectrum customers themselves. Thousands joined a lawsuit against Charter Communications, but it's also known as Spectrum Cable. The lawsuit had been accusing the company of misleading practices, a $28 monthly surcharge for retransmission fees. The fees said to be paid to local TV stations whose transmissions carried on cable and satellite systems, but the numbers apparently didn't add up, was the accusation the lawsuit was making, that in the end, Spectrum was allegedly profiting off this fee. The lawsuit had been saying Spectrum, quote, misrepresents the surcharge as a government mandate when it's entirely within the company's control. Attorneys went public. When it happened, they've said they had thousands of people file to join this class action lawsuit fairly quickly. As of June 9th, which is when this story kind of got all this attention online, was that attorneys were saying they've had over 4,000 people file to join in the class action lawsuit. So you could see perhaps the scope of just how important these stories were to you all. Okay. Moving on to our number 5 story, and this is when we were first kind of covering what was going on with decisions for DOGE cuts, Department of Government Efficiency cuts, but specifically relevant to our communities here in Kentucky and in Indiana. And this was at a point around, I want to say May, April, I believe, where we had reported there was a plan by DOGE to cut nearly $500 million in funding from health departments. That was what was published to a DOGE website that week, on saying that we were compiling some of this data coming from an enormous number, but it all kind of centered around the $500 million in grant funding slated to be cut from the state departments of health, according to the wall of receipts. That, if you remember, when the DOGE website was up and people could look at an extensive list of potential cuts to funding or contracts. Of the $500 million, about $400 million was supposed to go to the Indiana Department of Health. $100 was supposed to go to Kentucky's Cabinet for Health and Family Services. WAVE did reach out to both the agencies to try to clarify that. In the moment, neither could really provide much comment on the proposed cuts. And you've seen some of the video we show. Then White House administration ally, advisor, billionaire Elon Musk was part of this effort. But it comes on the heels, that did, of some news from the Department of Health and Human Services. They were saying back then they were planning to cut 10,000 more jobs from the federal agency by the end of that week. There was also perhaps their question at the time, the confusion about the legality of this, where the grant money would then be coming from. But certainly of interest to a lot of people checking in and clicking to see what the ultimate consequences were going to be. What those impacts are heading into the new year is something we can certainly continue to follow up on here in the WAVE newsroom. All right, moving to a story that you might be more familiar with if you're often a diner, like to go out and check out very established places here in our Louisville culinary community. As I'm prepping some of this video to show you here, because this is where the report actually gained some life on other websites. It gained a lot of interest. I remember a check-in we were doing on some Louisville or Kentucky-related subreddits, and this story we're about to remind you of not only got this traction on the website, it was getting traction because people couldn't believe this was happening, that this riverfront restaurant was taking drastic measures to protect their interior from floodwaters by flooding it themselves. And so with some perspective on how it also gave another riverfront business the idea to try it themselves, here is the report from Wave News' David Mattingly to share with you.
It is 7:14 on April 7th of 25.
On Monday, when the floodwaters were 10 inches high outside the Haymarket on River Road, there was already 18 inches of water inside. The building was flooded on purpose with fresh water to keep the muddy, contaminated river water out. And it's a lot harder to pull off than it sounds.
Part of the challenge is matching the level of the exterior water pressure. So you really have to work in tandem to get the building filled at the same rate.
If successful, the Haymarket could recover more quickly and get back into business sooner. It's a technique also used roughly 5 miles up River Road by the captain's quarters. Co-owner Andrew Masterson posted this video to social media on Sunday.
Speaking of the front door here, you can see the stark difference between the inside water and the outside water. I might even be able to see my foot down here.
But unlike Haymarket, Captain's Quarters is on the water, where Harrods Creek meets the Ohio. Floods are a seasonal nuisance. There was hope the freshwater indoor flooding could get the restaurant back in full operation in time for Derby. But this flood was too much.
That really only works up to a couple feet of water in the building. And we're looking right now, we're at about 10 feet of water in the building with another foot to go. So it's not working, but it was a noble try.
Well, that was our David Mattingly with that report, number 6 of the top stories. And we're going to keep going down the list. And here's where I'm going to show, if I'm going to pull up the article, which is where we'll set this up. But the big headline here being that federal agents had seized counterfeit watches being shipped. And see if I could. Well, I'll just go ahead and switch over. Oh, all right. Sometimes you're just trying to make sure you can get to the article to share and show these things with you sometimes, folks. But yeah, you see the headline, the Feds seizing counterfeit watches shipment from this November. So not too long ago. And something stuck as just a high performing story in its own. And so you can kind of get the gist of what we were able to report. This was confirmed by Customs and Border Protection, shipped from Hong Kong, seized by federal agents here in Louisville just before Halloween. These were all supposed to be mailed to places like Georgia and South Florida. 53 watches that were unauthorized versions of these very expensive watch brands, timepieces that collectors will often sort of have in their possession. They could increase in value. You're talking brands like Hublot, Cartier, Swarovski, G-Shock, Patek Philippe. If the items had been real, the combined price for retail would have been $6.6 million, but they had since been turned over to Homeland Security investigations for further inspection. Taking us back to the list. And if we're skipping numbers over again, like I mentioned, I'll explain when we do share the final list. That'll make a little more sense once we wrap up the show. But this had to do with our Wave troubleshooters. And in this investigation, what they discovered was one of, their investigations took a little bit of time to find the victims with paperwork who would have been involved to establish the sort of pattern of fraud or just a failure to fulfill a contract. One of them, as you can see here, made the top list of the most viewed stories online. Troubleshooter Mark Stevens has the story of an Indiana barbecue smoker company saying that customers have been waiting months or even years for their pieces to arrive home, and they never did. And so here is what Mark was able to uncover.
Zach Utley of Utley's Blowing Smoke.
So this is supposed to be my stainless steel sink table. It's in the box, not hooked up to the trailer.
He's not happy with this smoker trailer from Southern Smokers.
So no, this was not supposed to be empty. This was supposed to have a flat top grill, kind of like a Blackstone.
Utley says the trailer is missing half of what his $10,000 paid for.
I've never had a smoker without thermometers. There's no thermometers on the door.
Why'd he drive away with it then? Because he's been waiting for more than a year.
I'm not going to just sit back and let somebody have $10,000 and I get nothing in return.
For the
This
first
is heartbreaking.
Yeah, this was the first
Honestly.
time that we trusted someone else to do something for us.
Jillian and Aaron Miller were relying on their smoker trailer to advance their business, Clean Bone Barbecue, up in Fort Wayne. They say Southern Smokers made excuses. Instead of their $9,000 trailer they ordered in June last year.
Oh, his father was in
Okay.
the hospital shortly
I think the
after.
first excuse was no electricity at the shop. Had to rerun a line. And then it was father was in the hospital. And then father had passed away.
Same story with Brian Bellamy of Bellamy Exterior Experts in Paducah.
He just like stopped answering me. Like I would call him and I'm like, I just need an update, man.
He paid $5,000 for an aluminum flatbed trailer. Nothing complicated. He says Southern Smokers promised it would be done in a week, back in January. It never was.
We're making do, but I had a lot of really large, very important jobs coming up that I was depending on this trailer.
On the front seat and then the back one kind of matched this. I put it on there.
Bill Moore wanted a trailer to haul his classic car.
I kept trying to give him benefit of the doubt because I really didn't want to go through the court system or have to do all this. But
He says Southern Smokers left him stranded, just like his 53 Chevrolet.
I kept running out of gas. I think there's something wrong with the float in the carburetor. That's what I'm working on now.
He finally told Southern Smokers he wanted his money back. Out of the $2,900 he paid, he got $2,500 back. And some customers did get completed projects just way past their due dates.
Like, hey, what happened with your trailer? And I said, hey, guys, I got scammed. And they were like, no way, not you.
Craig Evans ordered a flatbed aluminum trailer to haul a tractor halfway across the country. He told his friends about it. It was supposed to be ready by the end of February.
Where's my trailer or where's my money? And then the games began.
He found a Facebook group full of people who've paid Southern Smokers and can't get answers. He joined, and several have complained to police. Evans did get his trailer on April 25th. So what's going on? I drove out to Southern Smokers in Nab, Indiana. This man wearing the pink shirt said he was Jeff Briscoe, the owner, but he wouldn't come to the fence to answer any questions. Then a man in this van wearing a Southern Smokers hat said I was trespassing and asked me to leave. On Facebook,
where you put your wood and you can cook some things in here.
the page showed welding, pressing metal, and finished projects that I saw out front, like this iridescent smoker. Utley was recorded driving off with his half-finished smoker trailer on April 20th. But what Briscoe hasn't told customers is that he had another company in 2021, Backyard Pits. He didn't finish making smokers then either. He got convicted of felony theft twice. State police arrested him for taking money from 15 people, $33,000 total, and not providing refunds or smokers. He pleaded guilty and was given probation instead of prison as part of his plea agreements. Twice. He also served prison time in Wisconsin in 2017 after being convicted of theft by contractor. He took money up front to do a siding job, but never did the work. Briscoe tells his customers he's just one man and is working to get orders out the door. But the other times I showed up, no one was there.
At what point is Indiana going to say, yes, this is a felony, and yes, we do need to prosecute?
He obviously builds smokers. I mean, he obviously builds. So does he just put all the names on a board and throw a dart at who he's going to be legitimate with?
I think he should go to jail.
Our thanks to Mark for that extensive troubleshooters report. In the aftermath, we do know there was a case, the latest one, filing a complaint against Briscoe, who apparently was paid $3,800 for a trailer August of last year. The customer, Robert Nip, telling police Briscoe kept making excuses about updates on his order. A detective called Briscoe on Nip's behalf. And Briscoe told the detective apparently he just talked to that customer, is going to give him a refund. When the detective called Nip, he claimed he had not talked to the smoker maker at all. Briscoe was then last checked at jail in Jefferson County, Indiana on these 11 charges. And last on our list of the top 10 online stories for 2025 here on Wave, we'll describe in a little more detail with a local YouTuber arrested. But this was the case of a Louisville man who was charged with having and sharing child porn. Michael Booth, by the alias Mr. Crafty Pants online. That story left quite an impression with you all, the viewers and the readers. His arrest in his Norton Commons home, certainly raising eyebrows and questions. Police saying they scoured through different platforms, what they're able to find about these allegations of these images. This is the report that our Fernando Garcia Franceschini did quite shortly after this arrest.
To hundreds of thousands of people around the world, Michael Booth is Mr. Crafty Pants, a social media influencer who creates fun and lighthearted DIY videos.
Let's get crafty, baby.
All of his videos have thousands of views, but to many in Norton Commons, he was their neighbor, a neighbor whose family, Laura Nash, says kept mostly to themselves.
They had great decorations, holiday decorations on their house.
But neighbors might be looking at the house with the holiday decorations differently now. Nash's Ring camera video shows several police cars parked right outside Booth's house on Wednesday, and the moment police knock on his door. Booth is now facing charges of distributing and possessing child pornography. Booth's arrest report reveals the images were shared at least 15 times.
Feels like a gut punch. It feels devastating. It makes you feel really vulnerable.
Nash says she immediately asked her children if they had interacted with Booth. They hadn't, but she says this has been a wake-up call for her community, saying it's hard to feel safe anywhere nowadays.
I know that he followed a bunch of my friends online. And so it's worrying to me to wonder what he may have been viewing of their life.
And so there you have, in short, we're going to replay, as I said, to recap the top 10 stories. But what we're going to do, and by the way, thanks for staying with us as we walk through the rest of the top 10 most viewed online stories, is we're going to look at other stories that just quite didn't make this list, that just didn't have all the clicks and interaction that it did on our website, wave3.com, but still very much consequential, significant, important that we're going to share with you. So we're going to take another quick break and be right back with more of tonight's special edition of Wave News Extra. All right, everyone, as we continue this special edition of our year in review in the Wave Now studio, I'm going to play again the biggest stories of 2025 on wave3.com. We'll go once again, this time from 10, counting down to 1 would be What you just saw before we went to break was our local YouTuber arrested, followed by the Indiana barbecue owner arrested. Our troubleshooters investigation for Mark Stevens. Number 8, you'll see belongs in the umbrella of the UPS plane crash. You can see it was more video that was shared, the different angles of that initial response from firefighters and the different gates at the airport. Number 7, federal agencies and counterfeit watches. And number 6, this new life for this captain's quarters story of how they're flooding themselves to protect the interior, keep the clean water in so the dirty river water would not get in inside. Doge cuts when they were still very much a concern for recipients and the agencies for Kentucky and Indiana. Number 4, again in the umbrella of the UPS plane crash, the NTSB's crash report, the preliminary one. Who knows what we'll learn from whenever the conclusive one is shared. Number 3, the lawsuit brought against Spectrum. Perhaps a lot of customers locally of Spectrum that drew some interest of what the accusations were, and if that was something perhaps many joined the class action suit. Number 2, the rats discovered in a Louisville distribution factory. Not many images that we could have or could find to illustrate exactly what was discovered, but the FDA letting us know that that's what happened. And number 1, the devastation of the day of the UPS plane crash itself. What we are going to do in this part of tonight's live stream is go over some other top stories in 2025. And we're going to begin
Immense gratitude.
with the confirmation that sitting Senator Mitch McConnell was going to retire at the end of his term in 2027. This is what happened back in February when the senior Kentucky senator on his 83rd birthday confirmed this was going to happen. He's the longest serving Senate party leader in U.S. history, serving 7 Senate terms starting in 1984. His health concerns recently, though, have been making headlines, freezing, falling, some bruising. His successor is going to be chosen by voters in November of 2026 to replace him whenever that election for the next official Senate term does happen. In a case here about how gun violence sort of was a theme, and even as we had our reporters today, David Mattingly was talking about, ending another year for LMPD and the Metro recording, still triple-digit homicides. This case back in August was just sort of a very stark, staggering example. This was 23-year-old mom, Rhodesia Williams, shot and killed walking her daughter to a JCPS bus stop. Police believed she was being targeted at 10th and Chestnut. LMPD had released pictures of the suspect. In the moment in time, there was still the fear of not having found someone responsible for her death. As I was mentioning, what David was discussing in his year in review piece for today was Metro leaders say, yes, there's been a drop in homicides, but the number's still crossing over triple digits. You can always check the Metro gun violence dashboard, but this year seeing 116 people killed in the city. It is an 18% drop compared to 24. At the same time, though, we did witness more than 260 non-deadly shootings. That is a 12% drop compared to 2024. Some leaders are talking about the progress that, yes, it is there, even if it's not necessarily leaps and bounds that much better, but many agree that there is more work to do to crack down on gun violence. The trial of the year started around springtime is when our coverage started in earnest. The conclusion of a decade-old case. These were the criminal trials in Crystal Rogers' death, the Bardstown Mom of 5, last seen 10 years ago. Her boyfriend at the time, Brooks Houck, and father-son duo Stephen and Joseph Lawson arrested. Steve's trial was first, where he admitted to tampering with Crystal's car seat, but he claimed he had nothing to do with her death. Still, the jury found he was guilty of tampering with the evidence and conspiracy to murder. Then the joint trial of Brooks Houck and Joseph Lawson, it took 12 jurors 4 hours to come back with a guilty verdict to decide they believe Brooks Houck killed Crystal and that Lawson helped cover that up. Quote, "You can admit your guilt, Brooks, and you can tell me where my daughter is, and that's your forgiveness from God," was a powerful quote said there from Crystal's mother, Sherry Ballard, who still doesn't know where Crystal's body is or who even killed her husband, Tommy Ballard. Right now, Brooks Houck is serving a sentence to spend the rest of his life behind bars. For JCPS parents, August brought a fresh face to lead public schools in the Commonwealth's biggest district. Superintendent Brian Yearwood starting the school year in time, though, and you could see what that was like, those images of the beginning of the year. Yearwood had come in from Columbia Public High Schools in Missouri, and the story we've been following ever since really is the first big task is to try to balance the district's budget, even with the controversies of recent proposals for consolidations and closures for certain elementary and high schools. But the fact is that they do need to try to balance the $188 million budget shortfall, a challenge that is certainly going to loom into the new calendar year for 2026. Now what we're going to do is bring you into the top sports stories of 2025. This year, we witnessed a significant number of achievements on the gridiron, on the green, the court, and the baseball diamond. Sports reporter Dusty Baker takes us through his 10 stories of the year in Wave Sports.
The year 2025 looked like it might be a year of transition for the U of L men's basketball program in the first season under head coach Pat Kelsey. But the transition instead turned into a revival as Kelsey helped lead the Cards to a 27-8 record that included an ACC title appearance, as well as the Cards' first NCAA tournament appearance since 2019. Another storyline on the hardwood was taking place in Lexington as Mark Pope taking over for John Calipari, leading the Cats to an impressive run that ultimately led to a Sweet 16 finish. Pope's squad closing out the year with a 24-12 record in his first season. Following the NCAA tournament came one of the most impressive performances we've ever seen on the racetrack, as Sovereignty was able to defeat Favorite Journalism in the Kentucky Derby. Sovereignty would not run in the Preakness, but would additionally secure the final leg of the Triple Crown, winning the Belmont Stakes. The boys of summer wearing U of L baseball jerseys kept the summer rolling along after making their return back to Omaha for the College World Series. The Cards, led by Patrick Forbes on the hill and Eddie King Jr. at the plate, would finish the year in the Final Four. The city of Louisville was treated to quite a roller coaster ride hosting the ISCO Championship at Hurstbourne Country Club. With a leaderboard that shifted frequently throughout the weekend of competition, William Mao would put together a final round where he shot 9 under, finishing at 10 under par and winning by 1 shot over Paul Peterson. After a grind in the first half of the regular season, Racing Louisville putting together a historic second half, leading to their first postseason appearance in franchise history. The ladies in lavender turned plenty of heads nationally, leading to Bev Yanez being named the NWSL Coach of the Year. Lynn Family Stadium, the home to Racing Louisville and Lou City, will also be home to a new professional team coming to town as the Louisville Kings have been announced as the new franchise in the United Football League. They've become one of the 8 teams now featured in the UFL and will be led by new head coach Chris Redman. The Kentucky Wildcats volleyball program returned to national prominence in 2025, reaching the national title for the first time since they won it all in 2020. The Cats beat Wisconsin to punch their ticket to the title, where they would fall to SEC foe Texas A&M. The Kentucky football program struggled in 2025, closing the year with a 5-7 record and capped with a 41-0 loss to Louisville. The university decided to make a seismic shift in leadership by firing head coach Mark Stoops following his 13th season with the Cats. UK would then hire former U of L quarterback Will Stein as their new head coach. The Indiana Hoosiers are arguably the story of the year for 2025, and it's a story so good that it will continue on into the new year. The Hoosiers have their first Heisman winner in quarterback Fernando Mendoza, the back-to-back coach of the year in Kurt Signetti, and have a chance to win a national championship in the next month. The Big Ten champs will begin their pursuit of a title in 2026 on New Year's Day when they take on Alabama in the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl.
All right, thanks to Dusty Baker for that 2025 stories of sports. And we're going to wrap up tonight with our top weather stories for the calendar year. We know Kentucky and Indiana have their fair share of crazy weather. It can feel like sometimes a variety even over the past year. Snow, ice, tornadoes, even some more recent earthquakes. And our Wave News anchor, Olivia Russell, Wave Sunrise anchor, Olivia Russell, takes us on this retrospective back over some of the bigger weather moments for the year.
2025 started off with a shock, a cold shock. The 8th snowiest January on record and sub-zero temperatures that kept that snow and ice on the ground.
Felt about like 10 times No, the worst one, I fell on my tailbone. It was in the street, trying to avoid the ice on the sidewalk.
Slipping and sliding on side roads and neighborhoods after 9 inches of snow. The impact so strong, it led Metro leaders to update the snow removal map throughout Louisville ahead of the next winter. But Mother Nature didn't stop in the spring. April started with severe thunderstorms, flash flooding, and historic flooding across our area, including the Ohio River, forcing Kentucky Derby Festival officials to make a call they've never made before, canceling Thunder over Louisville.
This weather event is like nothing we've seen during our operational period for the Kentucky Derby Festival or Thunder over Louisville. We've seen it before, we've seen it after, and we've certainly dealt with issues during the event itself, but nothing like this.
The water flooding the Great Lawn, shutting down roads that would bring people to downtown Louisville and preventing crews from setting up essential parts of the fireworks show. Then on May 16th, a powerful EF4 tornado traveled from Russell County to Pulaski County into Laurel County, killing 19 people and leaving hundreds of homes with significant damage. Governor Andy Beshear pledging millions of dollars for tornado-impacted communities through the Team Kentucky Fund. Not wind, but a massive fire in downtown Louisville on June 13th.
I'm on the Jefferson Street exit, and there was a semi that slid, and it's on fire, and it cracked.
A tractor trailer in flames dangling off I-65, falling onto the ramps for I-64 East and 71 North below. The truck driver making a miraculous escape from the cab, jumping 20 feet to safety, injured but alive. And the following month, a different kind of explosion across the river.
Even fires don't do stuff like that. That's just, I can't even imagine. I ain't gonna lie.
A Jeffersonville home exploded, sending a family of 5 to the hospital. 53-year-old Patrick Grimes later died from his injuries. Officials determined the blast was caused by a gas leak inside the home. From severe weather to unexpected incidents, 2025 presented a range of significant stories that won't be forgotten across our area. Olivia Russell, Wave News.
With that, hit the wrong button, everybody. With that, we think we're going to, say that pretty much in part encapsulated a lot of what happened from January 1st of 2025 up until these last couple of hours. A reminder that should anything change and when these things are updated, we're talking anywhere from breaking news, including what we're going to share with you tonight on Wave News at 10. Tonight's a special edition of Wave News at 10. So make sure you join us. And then that way, wherever you're going to enjoy the countdown into the new year, that you're doing so in a warm, safe, enjoyable place, surrounded by folks or however you prefer to ring the new year in. And you have all this at your fingertips through the Wave News app, through the Wave Weather app, at your home. Set it up on the Wave Now smart TV app, and of course here on the homepage of wave3.com. Everything that we take care of, our original reporting, our troubleshooters investigation, special series, regional, local stories, all here for you to check in on, as our digital team is also still working into this holiday night on December 31st. And with that, everyone, want to thank you for making the time to spend this part of the evening that you have after a long day of work or school, and just to sort of look at in a different way, a different kind of way to bring you this information. Sometimes it's, you're going about your busy days and you can't always sit in front of a television screen. But if you have access, for example, to your wireless connection and your devices that you've got in your backpack or in your pocket, just another, tool to be able to connect with us and us connect with you, talking about the stories that matter to you, that are, making that difference in the communities in which we all live and support and enjoy and want to see succeed. So with that, we're going to wrap things up as we're inching closer to the 9 o'clock hour. From here in the Wave Now studio, I'm Jose Sosaya. As I said, hope you join us for the special edition of our nightly news at 10 o'clock as we get ready to welcome 2026. Wishing you all happy, safe, prosperous new year. And we will see you, at least I think, if you have the day off tomorrow, enjoy that. That would be great to have. In our case here for Wave News Extra, we will see you on Friday night to officially go through the first live stream of 2026. Until then, everyone, take care. We'll see you soon. Have fun.